Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Otso Huhtala and I'm an architect from Helsinki, Finland. Today I wanted to share with you my master's thesis, so this will be a bit different from my earlier videos. I wanted to make this one in English because my thesis is written in Finnish and I wanted to share my work with a wider audience. I've tried to keep this video as short as possible, so a lot of information will be left out, but if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment down below and I'll try my best to answer. But without much further ado, let's get into it. So, my name is Otso Huhtala and in this video I will present my master's thesis in architecture, which was evaluated in June of 2021 at Aalto University in Espoo, Finland. The title of my thesis is Helsinki Share House, co-living house for solo dwellers. My supervisor was Sami Wikström from the apartment design professor, and he was also one of my advisors. My other advisor was Anne Tervo, also from the architecture department at Aalto University. My thesis is divided into two parts. In the first part, I study solo living as a phenomenon in Finland and Japan, and present the Japanese share house concept. In the second part, I present my design for a co-living house in Alppiharju, Helsinki, which is based on my findings from the first part. So what is a share house and why is it spelled incorrectly, you might be wondering. Share house is a Japanese co-living concept that originated in Tokyo in the beginning of the 2000s. Right from the beginning, the goal of this concept has been to improve solo dwellers' living conditions in crowded cities, where living is expensive and space is limited. The term share house is a typical Japanese word which has been borrowed from English, just a bit incorrectly. This is an established term when talking about this concept, so that's why I used the same grammatically incorrect term in my thesis. Residents in a share house usually have their own private rooms, but all of the other spaces are shared with other residents. What makes share house different from a typical shared apartment, at least here in Finland and other Western countries, is that a share house is managed by an outside share house operator. This operator is kind of like a bridge between the property owners and the residents, and it makes house sharing professional. In recent years, different kinds of services have become an integral part of the concept. These services include, for example, cleaning of the shared spaces once a week and resident-only events, which can be a great way of building a sense of community within the house. Share houses usually encourage social interaction between the residents, and to make sure that residents get along with each other, there is usually some kind of a screening process for new residents. One of the reasons for the popularity of share houses in Japan is that moving in and moving out is very easy, which makes it an ideal solution for short-term housing needs. I am aware that not all Japanese share houses are like this, but in my thesis I chose to focus on this kind of new wave of cool and social share houses that have become popular in recent years. Just to give you an idea of what a share house is like, I want to briefly present the share house I myself lived in when I was studying abroad in Tokyo. So this is a house that has 20 residents. It is a 3-floor detached house in a Tokyo suburb near a large train station, so getting around the city is very easy. Every person has their own private room, and in blue you can see the shared spaces, which include a kitchen/dining/living room, a rooftop terrace, and of course toilets and showers. The spaces are quite small, but I really didn't mind that. It just made the house feel more like a home. There was a great atmosphere between the residents and I actually made some good friends, so it didn't feel like living with strangers. Here you can see the living room, which I thought was very architecturally interesting. It has this great view of the train tracks, which was nice because my own room was on the ground floor next to a busy pedestrian street, so I mostly had to keep my curtains closed. This is a space in which all the residents gather to, both in everyday life and during parties, and you can always go there and find someone to talk to. Obviously, with the house being so tiny, there are some parts that are not so great, such as this sink that was placed in the hallway right in front of my room, so I would hear it very clearly every time someone used it. But overall, it was a very positive experience and I was very impressed by this house and everything it had to offer. So, after analyzing the concept, I came to the conclusion that the share house concept could well be imported to Helsinki as well, because the living situation in here is actually in many ways very similar. Both in Tokyo and in Helsinki, solo dwellers already make up half of all the households. In Japan, share houses are usually located in a central location, close to public transport, so that it's easy to get around even without a car. In Helsinki, this kind of area could be Alppiharju, which also has the highest concentration of solo dwellers in the whole city. The choice of the area is also supported by the findings of a recent Finnish study, which suggests that interest towards new forms of co-living is highest within solo dwellers aged 20 to 39 years who don't have a car and who live in a rented apartment in a densely built neighborhood in a big city. What's interesting is that this reference group is almost identical to the profile of a typical share house resident in Japan. So this is the target group for whom I designed for. So here you can see my design area a bit better. The buildings in this city block form a courtyard, which is almost closed, but it is split by a small public street called Helsinki. The access to my chosen site is through this street. The imaginary situation here is that this property is looking for ways to make more money for an upcoming renovation, for example, which is why they have chosen to sell the extra land they have on their lot. Currently, this backyard is used mostly for car parking. So let's get into the design part of my thesis. I've chosen to call my design Helsinki Share House in respect to the original Japanese concept. I want to clarify that this design is not an ordinary apartment building, which consists of independent apartments and separate shared spaces. Instead, the design is more like one really big apartment where each resident has their own room and the shared spaces are an integral part of the residents' daily lives. I also want to stress that my goal is not to force anyone who doesn't feel comfortable with it to share a house with others. Moving into this kind of a share house should always be a personal choice. There are many people who are interested in new kinds of co-living concepts, and this house is for those people. Before going into the plans in more detail, I want to quickly present some of the design principles that have guided the design process. I have developed these principles based on my findings from analyzing functional Japanese share houses, but also based on my own experiences of living in shared apartments, both in Finland and in Japan. First one was dispersing the different functions of living. So instead of all functions being in the same small space, like in a typical studio apartment, some of the functions are shared with other residents, which makes it possible for the spaces to be bigger and of better quality. The second design principle was to make the shared spaces diverse, varying, and high quality, so that the residents really want to use these spaces in their daily lives. The third principle was to create a sense of community through shared spaces, which are used at the same time as other residents. All of the shared spaces can be used by everyone 24/7. Random encounters in the common areas increase social interaction between residents. One of the biggest problems of current shared apartments is the lack of privacy, so the fourth design principle was to ensure that each resident has enough privacy, despite living in a shared apartment. The fifth principle was the appropriate number of residents. In order for the community to function properly, it can't be too small, nor can it be too big. In my design, even the bathrooms are shared, and the sixth principle was to make sharing a bathroom with other people as functioning and pleasant as possible. The seventh and final principle was to integrate the services found in Japanese share houses into the design of the building. The house is operated by an outside operator, and the residents choose amongst themselves a community manager. The common spaces are also cleaned once a week by a cleaning company. I made quite a few iterations of the layout during the design process. The biggest challenge was to find the right balance between privacy and community, and basically what this means is the location of the common spaces in relation to the private rooms. It was also challenging to find the right size for the main common spaces. Here you can see the site plan, so I actually removed some of the existing parking in order to make sure there is still some greenery on the lot. even after new construction. And I also designed a new garbage shelter next to the share house. So this is the view from Helsinki towards northwest. The division into private and common spaces is clearly visible in the facade of the building. The more public common spaces are located next to the street, and the window positioning is more freeform. The yellow color might evoke some negative emotions in some people, but I wanted the building to be unique and create an identity for the whole courtyard. Here are the floor plans for the building. All of the common spaces are located in this end of the building, and the bedrooms are located on the opposite end. When you come in, you have first a kind of a lobby space, the laundry room and the sauna, and next to them we have a guest room which the residents can book short term for friends and family who come to visit. In the second floor there is a combined kitchen, dining and living room, which is a place where the residents come together in everyday life but also during parties and such. Above this space, in the third floor, there is a loft and next to it a shared office space. All of the bedrooms are located in this end of the building, and they have all been designed so that it's possible to go to your own room without having to cross any common spaces which are in active use. This greatly improves the privacy of the residents. Each floor has the same amount of bathrooms, so there are 2 smaller toilets and 2 shower rooms, one of which also has a toilet and can be used by someone in a wheelchair. There is also an elevator in the building, and all of the common spaces have been designed so that it's possible to turn around in a wheelchair. The 4th floor has some cold storage space for each of the residents. This is a view from the living room, where you can see the higher ceiling and the stairs leading to the loft. This space is meant to be architecturally interesting, like a space that you can't find in a regular apartment. From this section, you can see the basic principle of separating the common spaces from the private bedrooms. This way you can always use the common spaces without having to worry about disturbing the residents who are in their own rooms. Between the common spaces and bedrooms, we have a stairway where I wanted to open views outside but also to the common spaces. This section also shows that there is quite a big height difference on the site, which is why there is some space left for bike storage underneath the building. The bedrooms come in 3 different sizes in order to cater for the needs of different kinds of people. All bedrooms come furnished with everything you need for daily life, so you have a bed, a desk, a chair, and some storage space. But the bigger rooms also have some room for the residents' own furniture. Here's a few renderings from the inside. So the private bedrooms are mostly covered with natural wooden surfaces, whereas in the common spaces the walls are covered with white plaster. The share house is meant to be different from the surrounding buildings. I wanted to create a new layer in the city structure and also to make the street a bit brighter and more playful. Compared to a regular apartment, the common spaces are more public, which allowed for more and bigger windows. And finally, I want to say a few words about the structure. The main structure of the building is DLT massive timber elements, which are manufactured completely without any glue or nails. The walls between the bedrooms have a lighter timber structure, which makes it possible to change the room layout in the future. I wanted to use only construction materials of 100% natural and renewable origins. So in conclusion, this kind of share house offers many environmental, economic, and social advantages compared to more traditional ways of living. The success of the concept in Japan proves that share houses can be a profitable business, so the concept is economically viable. I think buildings of this size and the concept in general have a lot of potential for infill development and reuse of buildings. Thanks for listening. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them in the comment section here on YouTube, and I will also put a link in the description where you can download and read my whole thesis. It's written in Finnish, but I suppose architecture is kind of a universal language, so you will probably be able to understand quite a lot even if you don't speak Finnish. But yeah, that's it for today's video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.